pictures of Keanu. So with that, Keanu.
I appreciate that. Steve said, since everyone knows everything about you, I need 3 fun facts that nobody knows. I gave him 10 that nobody knew, and now the whole world knows, but I still have some more. I am trying to get Steve to introduce me as, I think the reason that image came up, the Dos Equis guy, the world's most interesting man. If I can settle for Gastonia's most interesting man for the day, then we'll take that. Maybe I can get a sponsorship with Dos Equis.
Yeah.
But today is Alchemy's birthday. For those of you that don't know, I'm the founder of Alchemy Co-working, and this whole half of the room and some over there are partners at Alchemy. And what that means is that we're building our businesses together, we're building our businesses in community, and today is Alchemy's first birthday. So I felt like this was a massive setup. And Megan emailed me and said, hey, on March 21st, do you want to give a talk? And I said, that's Alchemy's birthday. Did you know that? She said, no. That's even more awesome. So I couldn't think of a better way to start the day. I was up extra early. I got my workout in. I was thinking about this all day. And so I'm excited to spend our first birthday here with you. Coming to Gastonia, I've realized that, how many of you are from here? You are the luckiest people alive. And I know many of you probably tried to escape, or all of you tried to escape and it brought you back, but I'm telling you, there's no place like Gaston County. No place. And I know it takes sometimes an outsider perspective to understand that. I come from far, far, far western North Carolina, in other words, New Mexico, and it's just not this. And I've been all over the country speaking and working with other businesses, and it just doesn't operate like this. And I asked them, well, how are you connecting with the community? Well, you know, we're in chambers and we go to mixers and whatever. It's kind of it. But what about service? What about boards? What about, you know, relationships? And nothing operates like Gaston County does. No place. It operates on a string. If you know one person, you know 15 people, right? If you know Steve DeAvery, you know everybody. But somehow everyone's connected in this way, and it all revolves around service. The best connections I've ever made in Gaston County were on the path to service. We were doing something together. We were serving. The biggest names or the most impactful people that we would have put on my prospect list to want to meet, we happen to meet shoulder to shoulder serving somebody. And that's just how Gaston County works. So I wanted to share that. That has nothing, I guess, or everything to do with my talk today, but I wanted to share just how fortunate we are to be here in Gaston County, and I want you to feel that leaving here now. It is such a great place, and if I had all the money in the world, I'd be living here. I'm telling you. I know some of you are like, Kim's like, you're crazy. I would be Bora Bora, Hawaii, I mean, come on. Even just, you know, maybe South Carolina or Florida, probably not. But, you know, I really would be here. So to be here with you all is an absolute honor. What is an alchemist? How many of you have ever read the book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho? Amazing book. It's life-changing. I'm encouraging you to pick that up at any point possible. But an alchemist is ultimately someone that believes in the potential of all things. An alchemist as a profession was someone who was thought to be able to change base materials into rare and valuable materials. Someone that could take copper and turn it into gold. Someone that could take mud and turn it into diamonds. Who thinks that's possible? I know, I'm telling you. Someone's like, no one's raising their hand, I'm done. That's what an alchemist was. But the spirit of an alchemist, and why we named our business Alchemy, is because alchemy is ultimately taking the ordinary and turning it into something extraordinary. Taking the ordinary and turning it into something extraordinary. And naming that in our business, it's given it the spirit that it has today, that every person that's building their business at Alchemy, every relationship that's formed that is an ordinary relationship becomes extraordinary. We've done extraordinary things together. We've done extraordinary things to impact the community. And that's what an alchemist is. But before an alchemist can believe in the potential of anything, they have to believe in the potential of themselves. They have to dig deep and see mud and say it can be turned into diamonds. See rust and see that it can be turned into gold. And have to understand that and really look personally, but also the potential of things. I remember when I first moved here in 2018, I moved here to work for a church. I met my wife, and I was a sergeant in the Army. I was a recruiter. I had rose through the ranks quickly there. I enjoyed it. I was making way better money than I was about to make in ministry. And she fell in love with that guy, and on the day that we got engaged, April 1st, 2018, was my last day of active duty service, and I was going into ministry. What a bait and switch, right? She believed in me, and she followed me to North Carolina 6 months after we were married, and I had 3 weeks to get here. So I went on Zillow, and I was kind of looking on the street view, and I said, wow, this looks like a beautiful neighborhood. Let's live there, let's rent there. Right around the corner off exit 19, and it was a brand new development, but everything around it was rough. I mean, if you've been over there off of Modena, then you understand. But we moved here, and I remember looking at Apple Maps, and I'm looking at this just massive downtown around the corner. And there's a Power Seafood, there's a coffee shop, there's all these restaurants. I'm like, wow, this place is booming. Well, obviously, those people didn't know how to deactivate their Apple listing because most of those businesses weren't active when we got here. I felt like I had been duped. You know, I came through downtown and I saw maybe there was Viva Techies at the time, which from Hispanic, my wife is Mexican, best Mexican food around. Best, hands down, Viva Techies. But I'm coming through here and I'm thinking, even at that time, I hadn't yet caught the entrepreneurial spark. There's so much potential in downtown Gastonia. I saw it as a blank canvas. There's so much that can be done here. That was in 2018. And I would drive to the gym at Luray, and the ballpark was all rubble. Who remembers that? It was just a field of rubble, right? If I was a kid, I'd have had a heyday over there. But it was just rubble, and I remember thinking something can be done here. Well, fast forward 2020, I'd been with Elevation Church, which is what brought us out here. I had moved to Belmont at this time, and I started to really feel this call and started to feel this potential in myself. And honestly, I started to get to a place where I was thinking something's wrong with me. You know, I was in corrections, I was in law enforcement, I was in the military, I was in finance, I was in ministry, and I always had like a 2-year timeline, right? 2 years and then I'm gonna pop smoke and I'm out. And I started to feel that way again about ministry, but it was different this time. I was surrounded by entrepreneurs that had exposed me to real business. Coming from where I come in New Mexico, business just isn't a thing. It's not something that you do, it's not something that's encouraged, although Jeff Bezos is from New Mexico. He spent most of his life in Washington. So the exposure wasn't there to believe that I could be an entrepreneur. But I met people that built real and serious businesses, and I was starting to ask, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just settle down? Why can't I just chill out? Why can't I settle and be happy where I'm at? Why can't I settle? I have an amazing wife, way more beautiful than I am, you know, definitely outkicked my coverage with her. She's very supportive. We have a salary, we have benefits. Why can't I just calm down? And these entrepreneurs started to show me what I thought was wrong with me was what was right with me. I wasn't built to be an employee. I wasn't built to exist in that confines. I'm a terrible employee. I get bored, I get insubordinate, I want to do my own thing, and they're like, sounds like an entrepreneur to me. Why don't you start a business? And I said, well, you know, I'd always thought about doing a coaching or a consulting business. I love teaching, and all of my careers I always taught, but I thought I had to look like Steve DeAvria before I could consult anyone. You know, wise, right? Some grace. Like, who am I at 27 to tell anyone how to do anything? But these entrepreneurs said, no, Keanu, you have what it takes. You can wait, but you're delaying the inevitable. And they became my first clients. So I had to face inside and see the potential of myself as an alchemist, the alchemy of my journey, before I could create the alchemy for anyone else. And so in seeing that in downtown Gastonia, I remember telling one of my business partners, Preston Wilson, who he and his wife are responsible for the William Henry brands, William Henry Salon, Ballard's Barbershop, William Henry Spa. I remember asking him, why not downtown Gastonia? You know, you have one in Belmont, you have one in Mount Holly, you have one in McAdenville, why not downtown Gastonia? He said, not yet. This is 2020, 2021, not yet. Well, that's about the time I started to have the vision for what is now Alchemy. Not yet. 2023, Preston calls and says, it's time. I found the right building. We're going to downtown Gastonia, and that's all I needed. That's all I needed to say, okay, we're back. But I had no idea that the mud of myself, or the rust of myself, or if you're being generous, the copper of myself in 2018, and the copper of downtown Gastonia would have a concurrent alchemy, right? To grow together, to realize that potential. See, because I come from a place, you know, putting the pieces together. In my career, I always saw there was now these links connecting, serving people. My first official job, legal job, was as a lifeguard. You imagine me up in the lifeguard stand, you're almost afraid to drown, because if I come in after you, that's a scary sight, right? My first actual job, I was 10 years old. I worked at a feedlot with my dad. My dad never graduated high school. Between my parents, they were never married. The highest form of education was a GED. So I remember going to work with my dad, and they didn't mind paying me because most people that worked there were undocumented anyways. They didn't mind a 10-year-old. I've been this size since I was 7, okay? They did not mind me going out there and running cattle. So, you know, we're working cattle, we're working a shoot, and a bull actually didn't chase me. It charged me and knocked me off of a platform. But I've been working for a long time, and my first legal job being a lifeguard, then went into corrections service. Law enforcement, I saw it as service. I come from a place where you respect police, but you don't trust them. I had an uncle die in police custody. Most of my family's on the other side of the law. But from my generation, a third of my cousins are dead, a third of them are addicted to drugs or in jail, and a third of them aren't living a life worth living. So I thank God every day that I was spared from that. But I saw that as, well, if there's a problem there, be a part of the solution. So I became a police officer. You see that in downtown Gastonia. People have a problem. All these folks that have taken a tour with me, most of them excited about downtown Gastonia, but some like, well, I don't know if I really want to be in downtown Gastonia. Well, you're going to complain about the problem, or you're going to be a part of the solution. So coming from where I come from, in that place, and understanding, well, how did I get here? I had to start to dig deep, because I was raised with a lot of victims' mindsets. It's all about who you know, in a negative sense. Now it's all about who you know. I love who I know. That's what puts me here today, right? Well, you just weren't born into the right family, or you're just not that skin color, or you're just not that person. You're just not connected to them. So a lot of victims' mindsets, and I had to overcome that and start to think, what got us here, right? I was raised in single wide trailers, food stamps. Dad worked very hard, paycheck to paycheck. He had remarried, or he never married my mom. He had married a woman that had 2 kids of her own. They had 2 kids together, and I was the outlier. She didn't much care for me, and we were very, very poor. And for some reason, I always challenged, why are we settling for this? So I started to look back at my lineage, and this is what I want you to think of. You have to dig deep into your ancestry and understand where you come from. If you are in America, you don't even have to be from America. If you're in America, you come from someone who believed for more. Someone who believed for more. Regardless of your ethnicity, your background, your race, your journey, someone believed for more at some point. And I started to feel that deeply, and I started to look in the Trujillo name. And the Trujillo name, the way my dad likes to say it, so we don't forget where we come from, Trujillo, but Trujillo or Trejo, I'm waiting for it to just become Trujillo and just leave it alone, right? But the Trujillo name actually comes from a region in Spain. That's why I'm a little lighter complected. So I'm kind of ambiguous as to what I am, and I just say fill in the blanks, you decide for yourself. But coming from a region in Spain, Trujillo was like what we would call Fort Bliss, Fort Bragg, like a military base in the Spanish region. And people that where you were born was what you became. Isn't that kind of true today, right? Where you were born is what you become. Your background, your family, your mindsets. I won't go down that rabbit hole. But truly, truly there. If you were born in farmland, you were a farmer. There's no choice. If you were born in military region, you were a warrior. So the Trujillo region were conquistadors. They were warriors. But warriors weren't well compensated. Warriors battled to be able to just provide for their family. So when the conquest started happening across the ocean, into Mexico, into Puerto Rico and these areas, a lot of them were promised land and riches and more to come and do this. So a lot of them weren't just for the Spanish conquests of faith. A lot of them were just, I want to try and provide something better and different for my family, and I understand the risks, and I understand the disease. It's going to be a miracle if we can make it across in the boat, right? But I started to look at that, and there was a very famous conquistador named Francisco Pizarro. He came from Trujillo. He came from that region, as to why the Trujillo name is popular in the Americas now. And I started to look back, and I picked up this book about the conquistadors, really just painting the whole picture. And see, I'm talking about this, and some of you know the history of the conquistadors, and you'd say, how could you be proud of that? Well, we're all, as Americans, descendants of the conquered and the conquerors. All of us. The subjugator and the subjugated. That's who we are. But at the core of it, it's someone who believed for more. So I started looking at that history, and I wanted to find that Trujillo name. Where is that Trujillo name in this Spanish book? And it was 24 hours on Audible. So I had to put that thing on double time. This book was like Bible thick. I had to listen to it on Audible. And I finally found the name. Francisco Pizarro was responsible for the conquest of South America. And he had his warriors with him that believed for more, wanted a better life. But sickness started to set in, hardships were setting in, they were getting beat at every turn, and he had a mutiny on his hands. So he took all of his men, 400 men, walked them out to the beach of South America, and he drew a line in the sand with his sword. And he said, on this side lie riches, on this side lie opportunity, and on that side you can stay, you can settle, or you can go home. Out of over 400 men, 13 men crossed that line. One of those men was named Trujillo. And I started to realize this and started to harness that and started to think, and I started to feel this weight too, this burden, this generational burden of someone believed for more. We came from palaces in Spain to single wide trailers in northern New Mexico. We came from believing for riches and trying to take land and trying to believe for more to food stamps and government assistance and barely being able to survive. How did this happen? And I realized we settled. And generation after generation after generation settled, from palaces all the way to single wide trailers. And a lot of you, your story is the same. Somebody settled and continued to settle and continued to settle for you to be here. At the same time, they still believed for more. How do you dig deep into that ancestry? How do you dig deep into understanding you are so lucky to be in this country? You are so lucky to have this. And I have two perspectives of this. My family goes back almost 10 generations. Some side of my family, some side of my ancestry, 37% is Native Mexican, conqueror and conquered. So in a way, America came to me and my family, and that's okay. But my wife, she's first generation American. Both of her parents came from Mexico. Both of her parents believed for more. So there's this connection from generations to first generation, and I just saw how they moved differently. When I asked my wife's, my mother-in-law to marry her, she said, well, she cried, first of all, uncontrollably. And then she said, she has to finish college. With tears in her eyes, she has to finish college. That's all. That's all you have to promise me. Because she'd be the first person in her family to graduate from college. Her entire lineage to graduate from college. And I see that, and I started to dig deeper into that and realize that how generations pass and we lose touch with that, right? We lose touch with where we come from. And we settle and we settle and we settle. But how do you harness yours? How do you dig deeper into understanding where you've come from? How do you dig deep in understanding your alchemy? What you can become? What you're leaning into? What may have been, you know what? It might even be silver, and you're happy with what you are right now. But is there more? Have you settled? Because what happens when we find a spouse and we have a couple kids? What do they call that?
Settling down.
Settling down, right? We settle down. We're conditioned to settle down. When I was a kid, I was rambunctious. Rumor has it, legend has it, that I thought my name was No Keanu No. So my first words were No Keanu No. And I know because there's video evidence of being at my grandparents-in-law's house and running through a screen door because I thought it was open and I didn't see it and bashed down a door. I was 2-3 years old. Again, maybe about that time I was closer to Steve's size. But no Keanu, no, right? Settle down, settle down. You're too rambunctious, you're too loud, you're too energetic. Some of you still hear that today. You're too much, you're too extra, you dream too big, you think too loud. Why? Why do we continue to settle? Yeah, you know, I know someone's feeling that right now in the front row. Maybe you should calm down.
Yeah.
Maybe you telling me to calm down should dream bigger. Maybe you should think about where you settled, and now you're making my capacity your belief. Now you're saying what I can do is based on what you believe and what you've done. So we see how we're conditioned in this way to settle down, and I don't blame anybody. Furthermore, I work with a lot of kids in that transitional phase between 17 and 21, right? What a weird phase when you're trying to figure out who you are. A lot of us and a lot of them, they don't know. And so what happens is they go and they pursue that degree and they pursue that career and they say, oh, I'm kind of miserable and I don't enjoy this, but it pays the bills. I guess this is adulting, right? This is what I have to accept. Because everyone posts memes about how much they hate their job. I guess this is just the reality of it. It's not, that's settling, right? And then you post all the memes all the time, and I post the memes too, you know what I mean? They're just fun. Y'all see me on Instagram, I post all the job memes. But I genuinely love what I do, and I see people, and sometimes I'm just driving to work, and I'm just looking around, and I see people just totally numb to their life, totally forgetting the sacrifices that were made for them to sit in that vehicle, for them to sit in their home, for them to sit in this country. Totally forgetting it and never challenging that I've settled. But the twist is, how do we become settlers? Not settling, becoming settlers. Why is that the same word? That's interesting. A settler, a pioneer, a believer, a conqueror, and someone who settles. Settle down, settle. How do you make that twist? Well, I believe you tap into where you come from, you understand that, and you know that you're becoming a settler. You know you're becoming a pioneer, an alchemist, when you feel the weight of generations on your heart. when you feel that there's nothing I can do in this lifetime. I could live to be 100, probably not me. I've done enough damage by now, probably not me. But I could live to be 100 and I still will have not seen the true alchemy of what I have been placed here to do. It could take generations, and I'm just trying to be the first step. That's how you know that you're going from settled to a settler. That's how you know that you're becoming that pioneer, becoming a conqueror, tapping into that. And I know that for some of you that's like, that's harsh. I want to see the fulfillment of my work. I don't. If I see the pinnacle of what God has placed me here to do, then I failed. I failed because it's, Lord willing, one day for my children, but not even that, for your children, for them to step into, for them to build, for them to believe, and even in this environment, because we're all on a string, we're all a shared ecosystem, right? We're all one organism in this community, that the movement of one rising tide lifts all ships. I shouldn't see the pinnacle of it. And if I did, then I feel like I failed. And far be it from me, I don't know God's plans. Maybe it is going to be the pinnacle and then it's just even better and I couldn't see it. I believe that. But taking on the heart of a settler is when you feel that weight and you just move different. What you sell is different. What you build is different. How you talk to people, how you treat people is different. I'll close with this. I come from very, very little. Next to nothing. And the most interesting man in the world to me was my grandfather, Robert Trujillo. There's a picture of him in my office, young, handsome. He looked like that guy, actually. Look at it in my office, he looked like him. So maybe there's something to it, Steve. Maybe you put the Trujillo name in there. He served in the military, he served his family, and he spent his career as a janitor. And he loved that. He chose that because he had 16 grandkids. So he got to see them, and he was a small town, one stoplight town. Every country song is about the town I come from, right? If the middle of nowhere had a middle of nowhere, that's where I come from. But he became a janitor because he got to be the custodian for all the schools. So he could see his grandkids that were in high school, he could see his grandkids that were in elementary, and he would spend that time with us. So I loved spending time with him. My dad, my grandpa, and my grandma would always spend time every Saturday, Sunday morning, go over for coffee, and I'd sit with them. And I would say, I want to drink coffee. You know, I'm 8, 7 years old. And they said, it stunts your growth. Well, they were all pretty short, so I believed them. Now, you know, maybe I could have been 7 feet, but now I love coffee, the Wandering Cup specifically, shout out. But we'd spend that time, and then when I moved here, my grandpa drove motorcycles. He was the coolest man to me. He drove motorcycles, he drove Harleys, he had an awesome big beard, just handsome man, more tan than I am, God bless him, lucky. And so when I was out of high school, the first vehicle I bought was a motorcycle. My mom couldn't co-sign for me. My dad couldn't co-sign for me. So I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. My grandpa said, I'll sign for you. Only knowing, like, if it just lights up that adventurous spirit. He drove the town over where I graduated. I took all $2,000 that I got from graduation. I bought a motorcycle. Really reckless. God saved me from a lot of things I didn't control. He also saved me from myself. I was going to school in Colorado, and I bought a crotch rocket. Just foolish, just foolish. You see the lineage of my foolishness as well. And so he was very, very close to me. And when I moved here, about 6 months after I moved here, he had a lot of heart issues. I believe it's because his heart was so big. But he had several bypass surgeries. He had pacemakers put in, and it was just failing. And I couldn't make it back. But even in his deathbed, as we thought he was recovering, he's sending messages, sending video messages to us saying, I'm gonna walk out. He's holding my grandma's hand saying, we're gonna walk out hand in hand. And that's my hero. And about a year later after he passed, I was back home and I'm sitting with my dad and we're talking about ring size for some reason. And I said, I have a 10.5. He said, I have a 10.5. Your grandpa had a 10.5. Grandpa, what we call him. Grandpa had a 10.5. So he says, I'll be right back. And he meant it because it's like a block over the town small. And he came back and he had this ring. And it's kind of oblong like that because he was working on his motorcycle once and it got caught, something clamped him, and he was able to pull his hand out and then go and get the ring back. So I love that it's kind of deformed like that. And growing up, I really hated turquoise because in New Mexico, Southwest, it's very turquoise. Now I love it. It's my most prized possession. You couldn't give me all the money in the world for this ring. I wear it every day to remember where I come from, to remember even the victims' mindsets when I thought, that's all I have of my grandpa. That's all he could give. It wasn't wealth, it wasn't riches, it wasn't inheritance, but what he gave me was better. Character, leadership, heart, family, passion, service, and this ring. So, as you go forward today, I want you to think about what is it that you hold on to that takes you from being settled to being a settler. And I know this is a dangerous message because some of you are going to go quit your job today. And if you do, we have a great place for you at Alchemy. We'll help you get your LLC and we'll help you get going. I totally understand. Dangerous message. Companies don't like bringing me in to talk much anymore because I'm like, quit! What are you doing this for? Oh, sorry.
Anybody but on this side.
Madison, Megan, come on, let's do something. But I want you to be dangerous in that way. I want you to ask, have I settled or am I a settler? And I'm very proud to share this morning. This is just so timely. First year of Alchemy's birth. I just signed a publishing deal with Hope Writers to write the book, Settled. And you all were the first to hear the outline, to hear the structure. But it's special because many of you helped me get here. Many of you made it possible. Some of you came at just the right time as far as the relationship, as far as the opportunity, and I'm so grateful to be sharing that with you today. So with that, I'm done. If you want to talk about you, I'm more than happy to. I've gone just about 30 minutes now. That's it, Steve.
Ask away. This is your chance.
Impressions? Who feels moved?
She's gonna be here the whole time.
She's the amen corner though. I pay her to be here.
I was waiting for you to just let out an amen.
Who's thought about their lineage before in that way? You have? What do you think about?
I'm an immigrant myself. I'm from Sri Lanka. My father was like that. He was never settling. He was a settler, but he died really young. So for me, I feel as if I'm carrying his legacy, and it's never enough. And so all of the years I've lived here, which is almost 40 years now, I have done nothing but try to improve myself, no matter which age. Now I'm in my 60s. So I've had many decades of growth, and I'm very, very blessed to be here in the US. And I know there was a reason I'm here as well, like you said. But I want to tell you something that really impressed about you. And I know with the Hispanic community, they settle. And I think it's admirable that you just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and make something of yourself. You know, it's we've had many people who are from the Hispanic background which we've tried to help. It's funny how they go back into their roots and they just don't know how to snap out. And it's cultural, right? And so it's great that you have had that opportunity.
Thank you. Well, there's the old story of like you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket and when it starts to crawl out, all the other crabs focus on it and start to claw it back. And whether that's actual or even just intangible, I've definitely felt it along the way. My mom, she was the last person to know that I was going to start a business in 2020 because it was the tip of the pandemic, right? We had health benefits. I was making a whole $40,000 a year, which at the time felt like a lot of money. And my wife was going to school to be a teacher. So she's the last person I told. Actually, I told her after I quit and was jumping out because I knew exactly what she was going to say. Oh, honey, I wouldn't do that. That's exactly what she said. And I understand she's trying to protect me and she cares about me. But again, their capacity or their belief is not ours. Thank you, Star. See, because I'm done talking, my amen corner can go. Checks in the mail. Thank you for your story.
After 30 years of having had accounting, finance accounting, that kind of background, done an MBA at the age of 50, now I've gone back to what I was killed at, and I've just launched a business.
Congratulations.
Doing
We call that unemployment at Alchemy.
So bookkeeping is where I'm going, but I've also got the executive side of me that I can help with scaling businesses. So
Well, every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. we host a mastermind, and it is amazing. You'll see all these wonderful people plus there. Come and join us. We'd love to help you on your journey.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love Gastonia. This is like, living 4 continents is the best kept secret in my opinion.
I agree.
Can you tell us a bit more about what you do on Wednesdays at 9?
Yeah, Wednesday at 9 a.m. we have a mastermind. It's called Extraordinary, because the simplest definition of alchemy is taking something ordinary and turning it into something extraordinary. So we do a mastermind called Extraordinary Mastermind, 9 to 10 a.m. It is open to the public for now, but the room's getting pretty small. You're more than welcome. I love what you and your husband do. You're more than welcome to join us every Wednesday at 9 a.m. at Alchemy.
Perfect. Okay.
Steve?
Reflect on the past year. What has been the amazing accomplishments and some surprises?
Some surprises. How fickle new plumbing is. That's been a surprise. But I've called myself the CEO of Alchemy, Chief Everything Officer. It's not glamorous because I want to learn everything, the ins and outs. We are actually scaling. We're in talks with a satellite location at Luray Mill. We're in closing conversations with a 16,000 square foot expansion into Charlotte. I wanted to know everything before I could go and I can grow. So that was surprising. I think some of the biggest celebrations actually come from our shared experiences. Every person that has come through Alchemy, every partner, as we call ourselves, not members, there are some days when I have to be on the road, I'm in Belmont or I'm in Charlotte or whatever, and I can't make it over to Alchemy for work or what I need to do. I live in Belmont, I will come all the way to downtown Gastonia and sit in Alchemy for 30 minutes, 45 minutes and answer some emails, just to be there. And so I think the biggest things and celebrations were that, as well as we were honored by the GBA for the inaugural Spirit of Main Street Award. That was really awesome, but even beyond that, just seeing the attraction and the energy that we're bringing from places like Belmont, like Charlotte, to give downtown Gastonia a second chance, a second look, as we have more and more Belmont folks coming over. That's exciting to me. It's the service of our community internally as our partners, and also what we've done with you, really through you, to serve the community. Is there anything I'm missing? Because I know from the outside looking in, you get to see a lot that I don't tend to stop.
Or the other folks here. I think it's building a community in downtown Gastonia that didn't exist before. I think that's a big way.
I'd love to hear from some of you, not about me, but about Alchemy, what it's meant over the last year to you. Cassandra actually came in cold to our grand opening party. We blew it up. GBA had everybody there. And she came in cold and said, hey, I'm starting a business. I want to join next week. And she did, and she's been there ever since.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's a common thing that we all say. It's more than a space. It really is. It may sound cliche to say that amongst ourselves, but it's genuine when we say that. It's just about the people. It's the connections. And being an entrepreneur can feel very lonely. Right, working from home. Since moving to North Carolina, I've been here 7 years. I've worked from home the whole time. This is the first time that I've had, like coworkers in a sense, that I'm building friendships, and that's really what Alchemy is.
That's what, I didn't get into this for real estate, and I have a partner that did my construction who's all real estate guy, and I'm so grateful for him. But he said, well, no, Keanu, at the end of the day, it's a real estate business. No, it's not. It's a community business that happens to have real estate. I was looking for other avenues to create this, and just happened to find that co-working and awesome coffee was the vehicle to do it. So that's why it's emphasized. I've given every tour of Alchemy, everyone, and I sell them on the connection, on the community, on the collaboration. Oh, by the way, we have offices, desks, and general access and meeting rooms. Tell me what you want. Let's connect, right? Justin had a great experience. He was out to lunch with the GBA, and I think 3 or 4 of our partners were, man, you gotta come check this out. We're connected through church as well, but like they'll get you. I got a whole sales force.
Oh, they found me.
That are like, you seem like our people. You are the right fit, and so that's really awesome to create. And something that's so welcoming and inviting too. Again, it was, like I said in my story, it was the exposure to entrepreneurs that taught me how to dream. It wasn't the explanation. It wasn't a class. It wasn't a seminar. It was running with them. So how can I do that? That's what Alchemy has become. It's exposure. We have a couple people now that are pre-LLC that have joined and are paying pre-revenue and said, if I could just get there, I know I'll build my business. And now she has a logo, and now she has her LLC, and now she has her bank account. That was the vision. I don't know how, but I know if I can get into those walls, I can make that dream come true. I can make my ordinary extraordinary.
Alchemy's like the opposite of crafts. We're like pushing
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Like, how dare you start to think less of yourself? Get out of here. Yes. Yes, I love it. Any other questions? In general as well. I know I didn't cover
I
everything.
have a question. So what was your biggest challenge from that change from employee to become an entrepreneur? Your biggest challenge, your biggest fear? Because sometimes I think that what happened to me. I used to be an employee as a journalist, and I see myself on you. I was changing every 2 years, from Univision, Telemundo, and then here, until I start to do my own business, like United Tennis. So I feel like, as a tennis coach, I could be working, there is a big need of tennis coaches out there in country clubs. I could be making like 120 for 1 hour.
Yeah.
And some people have told me, you're crazy, why are you doing that? You could be gaining more and more money. And I tell them, yes, but probably I would be empty inside. So probably I'm not getting too much money, but I'm so happy and full with what I'm doing. But I had a lot of fears when I started, because I changed from being an employee with an income, everything was, like flat, paying safe, to nothing, to $5 one day, 1 month. I was like, okay, with 2 babies.
Yeah.
So, so what was your biggest challenge and fear when you did that transition?
I don't know how to say that I don't process fear. Again, jumped out of a helicopter at 110 feet, but I won't do a roller coaster, right? I have to be in control. I know, right? Anything that I'm in control, I don't care. Dude, skydiving, I'm in control. I feel all those feels with that lesson. A roller coaster, though, no way. I don't know who's driving this thing, who's pressing the accelerator. So when I first got started, I think the fear was more so that I was putting my wife in a bad position. But I really did feel, from a faith standpoint, my ambition has gotten me in trouble a lot, because I want to jump because I want to jump. I actually wanted to leave Elevation, all amicable, great experience, still have relationships there now. I wanted to leave in January 2020. Right, it's 2020, we were all excited. 2020 vision, it's gonna be amazing, life's gonna change. We were right, but we didn't know how, right? It's like, we're basically on 2020 number 5 right now. But I was motivated, and I felt it's all ambition. I can't jump yet. And I waited. And thankfully I waited, because then March happened and COVID happened, and I did finally make my jump in June, which I felt like was plenty of time. And that's when I felt God saying, okay, it's time to go. And I did, and I had just to be faithful to walk in it. So there were fears there for sure, but I think the greatest challenge actually came not in building the coaching and the consulting. I think my biggest challenge there was my own self and focusing. I wanted to do everything. Coach everyone, speak, do everything, all of it. The greatest challenge actually came in capital. I think it's important to share this part. I didn't know what a credit score was until I had ruined mine. Right? Remember the motorcycle? Remember Colorado and a college student? A couple of payments were missed. Right? So I had ruined my credit score before I realized, what is this? Is 500 5 times 100? Is that not good? It was bad. And so it took a lot of time to recover from that. So by the time I'm going down the route for Alchemy, I can't sign a lease. No commercial broker would touch me. There was a time when I was battling to get into Luray in 2021 just to get a conversation. Now, they just brought their partnership team and their investors to Alchemy to say, please do this. I still don't have great credit. I'm working on it. All right, I'm working on it. I made some stupid decisions, but I couldn't finance a ham sandwich. So the greatest challenge actually came in McAdenville. I was so close to closing the deal there. For those of you that know the FAR Corporation, Bill Christarfin and that name, they believed in my model, which alone was fuel, right? Everyone that knows McAdenville, everything's very intentional that goes in there. It's 2 blocks. You can be picky, but they're very intentional, and they liked my model, and they said, Keanu, we'll give you a chance. We'll move you into the Dynamo building right behind the river room, right by the waters, beautiful space. And they said, but you need to raise some capital to capitalize yourself and show us that this is sustainable. We know you don't have the backing, right? So I did, and I spent 6 months on the road, building investors, building relationships. I had to raise $350,000 to capitalize the business, and I did. And I had $350,000 against $1 million valuation, so I was gonna give up 35% of the company. It was an idea at the time. And I came back to FAR and they said, okay, let's talk about the lease. Everyone who is a partner, who has invested, who's sniffed this deal has to sign the guarantee for 10 years. Sign the lease, co-sign it. Everyone hit the hills. They said, Keanu, I'll give you double the money. I'm not signing a 10-year lease. So it was dead in the water. And it was the first time throughout this journey that I couldn't outwork it. I couldn't outbelieve it. I couldn't outthink it. I was just stuck. So that was tough because I started to realize, and I had a dark moment for about a week, and I started to think that maybe I was just foolish. Like, how dare I think that I could do this coming from where I come from? You know, the victim's mindset started to settle in again. How dare I think that I could believe for more? It was always foolish. It was never gonna happen. It was a pipe dream. And at that moment, Preston Wilson called and said, I know you like McAdenville, I like McAdenville too, come and look at this building in downtown Gastonia. And I'm so glad that McAdenville failed, because we wouldn't have had half the impact, we would have had 2/3 of the space, we wouldn't have had the coffee shop, they wouldn't allow it in that model. And I'm grateful for FAR, very grateful for Bill Christopher for even believing and even mentoring me how to get this done. But at the end of the day, I thought that I was dead in the water. Now, the Charlotte expansion, no guarantees. It's a $0 acquisition. I signed the lease and take over the space. It's making $36,000 a month right now. Now, the overhead's 46. So it has some room, $0. Lorraine, please come and do this here. We will give you a $0 lease between you and I on a rev share. We want this here, we need this here. So that was the greatest challenge, and I almost gave up. Now, I don't believe that of myself, I'm too stupid to give up, but that was the greatest challenge, was capital. And if I could do that, coming from where I come from, none of your dreams are too big. There's someone out there right now that believes in what you want to do, whatever it is, and they will write the biggest check. The guy that wrote the check for Alchemy, by the way, I put $0 into getting Alchemy going. 100% of construction and furnishing was paid for by the landlord. South African multimillionaire that just wanted to do cool things and wanted to set up businesses that would pay his nonprofits in perpetuity. So when y'all pay your monthly rate and I pay that $7,500 lease, it's going straight into nonprofits that he has established overseas. Someone out there believes in your vision and will write a check for it. You just have to work harder to be seen by it. That's a different talk. That's next time. Come back for part 2.
Will it be in the book?
Maybe. Let the publisher handle that. Yeah.
Can you repeat the name of the book?
Yes. Yes, we're gonna thoughts, questions? Yes, ma'am.
So, asking for a friend, what would be your advice to someone who has had a business idea for quite a while, but has been an employee their whole career, has kind of been in a comfortable position in their career, but wants to kind of take that leap into starting their own business, but they don't really know where to go from having this idea to making it happen?
Where do they need to go?
No,
genuinely. It's like, because this one thing is really easy. Wishing well, Brittany, she reached out one day and said, I want to start this business, can you talk? Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah,
So we talked about it, but I'm not scalable, and Lord willing, I have a long, long time left. But if tomorrow I'm gone, right? I can't just say, tell them to come talk to me, because they can.
Yeah.
Your friend.
Yeah.
We can spend that time where we can process it. I think the thing is, like, being comfortable and understanding that is understanding that you've settled, and understanding it has to come from a deeper place. Your why has to be so deep.
Yeah.
Another talk that I do is that your why is BS. I believe most people's why is BS. And this group has had to feel it before. They've had to catch that heat,
Yeah.
because we did a why session. And then I said, okay, I just put $1 billion in your bank account. Is that still your why? No. Your why is BS. If you put $1 billion in my bank account, I'm here today. I'm doing the same thing. I'm driving something a little nicer.
Yeah.
I might have a Rolex. I'm doing the same exact thing. My why doesn't change.
Right.
So that person has to have a much deeper reason. Is it that I'm setting an example for my kids and I want them to see they don't have to settle? I want to show them what's possible. I want to build it, and even if I fail, I'm going to create that lesson. So first it has to start with that deep, deep rooted why, or else it gets hard. It gets hard. There's no money in business. Who's in business knows there's no money in business, right? Money in scaling a business, there's no money in business. I had someone come and see me yesterday, actually, that said, I want to start this business and I'm not making enough money. Stay there. You're gonna make way more money there, right? But that deeper why, and then understanding, well, what's the first step? If you can simply craft what the offering is, craft what the product is, whatever it is. If it's a service-based, call all of your friends and say, I want to tell you about this service I want to start to offer. I want to tell you about it. I'm not trying to sell you, I just need some feedback, right? build that base, build that pool. That's how I built my consulting business, probably how a lot of these service-based businesses built theirs. Get some feedback, get some ideas on what it makes sense. Let the market vote and tell you, your friend, what is a good idea, right? That's something I would buy. That's something that I would do. That's something that I would invest in. Let the market share that. Because what you do, I don't think is as important as that you get started. Alex Hormozy says, your first business is not where you get rich. Your first business is where you get good. And that's just showing you that it's possible. So whatever it is, just get started, take that first step. The young man yesterday, who I'm trying to talk him out of it, but he's gonna do what he needs to do. I said, put it on paper. Show me what these numbers look like. He has a concept, he has an exact idea. Start to put it on paper. Because I love Google spreadsheets now, because in a way, they help me get through. If I had a hard day, I'd go back to the spreadsheets and I'd tweak them, I'd work with them a little bit, like, okay, I'm gonna make it happen. And I looked in those numbers and I would pray for these people and I would think who I was gonna serve. So start to put it on paper and just take the next step. That's all. And then yes, as